All right, this video is going to be about using and creating and manipulating 3D views. And I'm working with the same file that I used last week. Nothing new going on in it. Just I need to show you some things. So with Revit, we've got two different types of 3D views. We've got the orthographic, which is the norm and the default, in which all heights are the same. There's no vanishing points or anything like that. If you've taken the, I guess, 2010 class where we did some perspective sketches, where you have vanishing points, and I'll demonstrate both of those here. But the default is a 3D orthographic. So this is the default 3D view. If you hit that, and you can tell because it's called 3D and it's got the curly brackets around the file name. If you were to delete this view, I'm going to close it. So if you were to come over here and delete it, and then you click the default 3D view again, it comes back. Okay, but any changes you have made are gone. Like I had it set at color and shadow and stuff like that. Same kind of thing if we were to, you could duplicate it, of course, but if we were to rename it, I'm going to say 3D ortho. I'm going to turn it like that. Now, if I were to click my default 3D view button again, it recreates it again. So that's just so you know if you lose it somehow, it'll always recreate it for you. Now, we're going to create some presentation views. Sometimes you'll want them for projects in your drawings, or as standalone images or whatever. You do not want to use your default 3D view for that because you want to be able to save your camera settings. And one of the things about all the 3D views, if you use the view cube or the compass up here, you're changing the location of the camera. Okay, so there's ways to manipulate your views without doing that, but when you work on the default, that's the way it happens. Okay, so I'm going to let me duplicate that. Well, yeah, that'd be fine. Call it 3D perspective. Now, I didn't have to do it over that way. I could have done it through the menu up here with my view commands. But I'm in here, and in our properties over here, there's several things we want to look at with some of these. But the main thing right here first is the projection mode. Let's change it to perspective. And you notice it changes the way it looks because now we have vanishing points in that all of the what were horizontal lines here are going to a common vanishing point on the right side and on the left side. And the camera view is always the center of the view. You can adjust the target view in the back, but the camera view is always going to be center of the view once it's set. Okay, so that's a difference in the two. Sometimes you'll want plain ortho, sometimes you want a perspective because it looks more natural to the eye, but it totally depends on what you're doing. Okay, let's come here to our site plan, and let's show you how to create a camera view. So let's go to View, and come over here to 3D View, and we'll hit the pull down, or you could hit the pull down up here also. And let's go Camera, And the first thing you get a little camera icon at your cursor. Well, let's look up here in our options first. It's by default set to perspective. Okay, so we can unclick that. Then we can set a scale that we would want our view to have. Okay, and so, I don't know, let's say 1/2 inch scale. The offset is the height of the camera from the ground floor. So I'm going to change that to level 1, and we'll say 5'6" off of level 1. And I'm going to come back here and place the camera, and then drag my mouse out, and that gives me a path and a target. And the target is just that. It's the target of the view. And if I change my height here to 0 ground floor before placing my target, then it sets my target location. And so now I've got my camera out here at a set height and my target back there in the back. So let's go back to our site plan. I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to display both of these. So I'm going to go WT to tile windows and zoom all. Okay, so if I select this camera, the crop region, it highlights the camera and the path and the target over in the site plan. And so here you can adjust these things. So I could adjust my target by clicking and dragging. I could adjust the camera. Okay, and so here's how you adjust your view without having to mess with the view cube. Okay, because when you're messing with the view cube, you change everything around. Okay, so let's come back over here and look at this. And if we say do not crop view, well, our crop, we're not cropping anything out right now. Just like with section views and the other elevations, we can have an annotation crop, and that gives you those double lines there where text can fit in there if you should want it. The far clip active. Trying to see where it was where it shows it. It's not showing it. Do not crop view. Let's try that. It's still not showing it for some reason. Well, the far clip, just like with elevations and sections, gives you a distance out. So that if you did not want to see the, maybe there's something in the back you don't want to see. I don't know. But for some reason, it's not showing it. May have to think about that. Okay, so let's look at let's look at an elevation. And so there's our camera and there's our target. Okay, but the target actual is, remember we said it was at the ground floor level. And so here's one way you can adjust the height of these things. Okay, so that's a little bizarre there, but so this is one way you can adjust them here. You can also adjust them over here in the properties, the eye elevation and the target elevation. Okay, so those things can be adjusted there. Okay, so I'm going to close those and remember what we said about the view cube there, just totally bonkers things around. Okay, I'll just leave that. So I'm going to hide hide the crop region, and let's change over to realistic and kind of adjust this around a little bit. Now, when we start getting into rendering, which we're going to do in this week, but it'll be in some other videos here, we can adjust our background that we have. And one way to do that is in whatever 3D view that we're going to be using. We come over here and go graphic displays. We can do it here, or we can come down here and go graphic display options. Okay, and we'll cover some of these other things later. But what I want to talk about right now is the background. And we've got some options here. We can change it to sky. And this sets our ground color. The sky is going to be blue, And so let's say OK. Well, it just looks kind of blah right now. But if we go to an elevation type view, so now we can see the sky and the ground. But as you adjust them, all you get is ground because you're looking down at the ground. But if we go up, now you get all sky. Okay, so that one's not such a great one to use sometimes. So if we change to gradient, and here we have, 3 different colors that we can change. And so let's apply those. Go back to an elevation and we can see, a gradient color coming down to that. But the same thing as before. Once you get an angle to your view, all you're getting is what's behind it. The other option is an image. And you can load an image. It could be a logo. It could be a photograph of, the background that you want. And so you come here and then you load it and you adjust with your sizes and stuff like that. But I'm not going to put one in there. Change that back to none. There's the one thing, if you do use an image, the image will be a 2-dimensional image in the background. And whatever size you set it at is the size that it will be. Doesn't matter where you zoom or pan or rotate your 3D view. It doesn't change that background image. It stays the same. Okay, so let's go back and open up my site plan again. I want to show my crop region so I can show my camera here. And let's, I want to pull it back to where we were. I don't know. Let's change that down to something more manageable. Eye elevation was supposed to be 20 feet. Okay, so I showed you how you can move your camera, you can move your target, and it changed because the target elevation is still at 0, just we moved it further away, so it kind of changed the view. You just kind of have to play with it. But like I said before, in using up here, if you use the compass, it does not, it just rotates your model, so your elevations all stay the same. But if you use the cube, it changes the elevations and the locations of the cameras and things like that. So it's just the kind of thing you're going to have to play with it a little bit. Okay, so let's I want to open up the perspective view, and one of the things with it, all right, so let's bring our camera in a little bit closer. One of the things with perspective views is the camera position is always going to be center of the view. Okay, so you can change your target, but the camera itself will always be center of the perspective view. You can't have it off to the side like you could with an orthographic view. It's just the kind of thing you just gonna have to play with them a little bit to kind of get a feel for how the cameras work and how you can set up the views and things like that. Looking at my notes, I think that pretty well covers a lot of it. As far as setting up your 3D views and your cameras and stuff. I don't think I have showed you how to do an interior. So let's go to level 1 and so we'll set one up here. So we'll go this and we'll go camera, and yeah, we'll leave it at perspective. 5'6" is kind of normal for eye height. So I'm going to put it from this corner here over to this wall, and then we'll kind of look at it. And so let's go with some color so we can see how this thing looks. Woo, that's a nice purple, isn't it? Okay, so now we've got an interior view, and we can adjust our cameras from here. I'm going to close that and then tile the views. Oh, what happened? And a zoom all. Okay. And so with interiors, we got a little bit of a difference here with our far clip and stuff, but we can adjust our camera view, if you will, so that we get, the view that we particularly want. And if I click on it again, it still shows, and if you notice, it adjusted the width of the angle of view of the camera, but it kept the target at the same. So if I were to adjust my target, then that would be something a little bit different. And it being a if okay, so with interior views like this, if you set it at perspective, then it becomes a photorealistic image, if you will. If you leave it at ortho, everything appears to be true height and true width and shape and depth and stuff. So some of the things that you can do interior 3D cameras for perspective for rendering like photograph looks of your model, or you can leave them as ortho to get almost like an elevation view, if you will. But we typically use interior elevations to create elevation views. It just sounds like I'm rambling a lot here this last couple of weeks because these are just a whole bunch of little things that the software will do. Um, so play around with some interior and exterior cameras, adjusting the heights and the far clips and those kinds of things. I guess I can show you that here. If I were to pull the clip back, you can see it all of a sudden cuts off that wall because I've got far clip active. If I turn off that active, then the rest of the project is there and there's no clip plane visible. Okay, so play with some of those, kind of get a feel for what you're doing. If you've got any experience with photography, then this kind of relates to using a camera when we get into the rendering part, which will be in the next series of videos.